welcome Travis Walton.
Thanks for coming. How many people saw the movie? Well, I guess by now you probably realize that they got a little creative there and changed some things. But I am looking to, in the future, possibly getting a remake of the movie and getting them to tell it how it really happened. But for now, that's what I'm going to do. November 5th, 1975, a day that changed my life forever. I was working in the woods with a crew of 6 other guys. There were 7 of us all together. In the movie, they only had 6, but we put in a long day, and it's starting to get dark. We loaded up our equipment, and we're headed home. We're driving along this rough dirt road, and everybody was talking away. In the movie, it looked like everybody was kind of dozing off, but we hadn't gone very far down the road, and so, we were wide awake. We'd just recently been, doing vigorous physical work, and so our senses were as awake as you can get. And I noticed this light up to our right. The road we were on was paralleling the ridge going south back up towards the rim road, and the crest of the ridge was to our right and a little higher than the road itself. But when I noticed this light coming through the trees, it wasn't like immediately it was so alarming that everybody said, "What's that?" I was looking, and before I said anything to anybody else, one by one, all these little conversations that were going on amongst the crew dropped off, and everybody was looking in the same direction. And we were wondering what that was, and it was deer hunting season, so I thought that maybe there was some hunters camped there. But the light was coming from higher than where ground level would be. I could see a break in the trees up ahead where the light was coming across the road. I urged Mike to, hurry up, get up there so we can see, what's going on, because people were saying, "What is that?" And this is part of the movie where they were fairly accurate. As soon as we got to where that light was crossing the road, there it was. It was unmistakable. This object was hovering less than 100 feet away. The skeptics were later saying, "Oh, they saw the planet Jupiter," and stupid things like that. Didn't look anything like swamp gas. This was a distinct metallic object hovering less than 100 feet away. Alan Dallas yelled out, "It's a flying saucer," and I called for Mike to stop the truck. Because I was thinking, this is a, incredible thing, but, so often when we're in the woods and you caught sight of a deer or bear or something, you'd call the rest of the crew attention to it, and before they could even look, it'd be gone. They might not even see what you saw. So that's kind of what I was thinking. When I threw open the door and started towards it, I thought it would be gone before I got very close. It was kind of a brazen act, all right, and the guys in the truck were pretty alarmed by what I was doing, and started yelling at me almost immediately to come back to the truck. And myself, I was wrestling with some misgivings about what I was doing, because it didn't leave like I expected it to. And so I was kind of stuck with that one. There's the crew. Mike, Ken Peterson, Alan Dallas, the black sheep. Been in and out of trouble ever since. I heard recently that he's back in trouble. But there's Dwayne Smith and John Glett. I recently had him on an interview with me on the NBC Today show back on the 12th of this month, and they did a pretty fair job of it. And anybody that saw that, you know, I'd encourage everybody to please get in touch with the Today Show and express some appreciation for having got it right for a change, because you know, the media needs encouragement when they get it right, because so often they've got to have that little snicker at the end or some sort of a negative slant. But anyway, and then on the bottom right was Steve Pierce. I hadn't heard from him in many years, back since right after it happened, and he got in touch with me here last year and was interested in talking about it again. I've been trying to find Dwayne Smith and Alan Dallas again, you know, to get their their current perspectives on things. But you know, as recently as when I talked to them last, along about the time the movie was made, everybody was, you know, had pretty much come to terms with what happened to us. Anyway, crew truck, double cab truck, that's how 7 people fit in one truck. This is part of the state where it happened. Pretty rugged back country at that time. I may as well tell you about that right there. There's this kind of a coincidence. Found this map, topographical map. It had divided up the state into all these different areas, and just one of the many coincidences surrounding this incident. The area that they designated for where this happened was Area 51. Go figure. maybe the map maker's idea of a joke, but this is how it looked to me when I got up close to it. And it was incredible, an incredible sight. And John Glett here on the Today Show that just aired remarked about how to him it looked so perfect. You know, he said it was like a new Corvette. You know, it was. I was just standing there in awe of this thing, looking up at it. It was metallic in some areas and glowing in other areas. What you see on the bottom of it here, looking up at this angle, are reflections of the trees and everything. But it was smooth like glass, but this light kind of lit up everything with kind of a strange sort of a glow. It gave it a kind of a strange feeling. The sound it was making was really very difficult to describe, because there was a sort of a rumble, a real deep rumble that you know could almost feel more than hear. And the same thing with the higher notes; they were like off the range of human hearing. So you know, those kind of sounds, when you turn your head, it doesn't change that much, which gives a kind of a where's this coming from kind of a strange feeling. But when I got up close, the guys were really getting very anxious and swearing at me and telling me to get away from there. And it suddenly got louder and it started to move. It was kind of with a little rocking motion as it rose up. And that scared me more than I was already scared. But there was this pile of logging debris. And that was the reason I had stopped. I got about as close as I could looking up at it without you know, running over this big pile of logs. And so when it started to move, I jumped down behind a log there, and they were saying, "Run, get out of here, let's go." And I didn't need to be told. I was trying to figure out, how to get to safety and leave the relative safety of the cover behind the log. But I was down in a crouch, and I raised up to sprint back to the truck, and at that moment, bam! It was just like I'd been hit. Didn't see it coming. It was really a kind of a stunning blow, sort of a feeling. Just like numbness really quickly spread through me, and I blacked out. But the crew said that it was like this beam came out of the bottom of this craft and hit me, but it was like I'd stepped on a landmine, or like a grenade had gone off, and the explosion threw me back through the air. I've been saying it threw me back 10 feet, but Steve, when he called me up, he was saying, no, it was 20 feet. But whatever it was, they said that it looked to them the way, I didn't protect myself when I hit, and the way my body was limp, that they thought it had killed me. And they, were yelling as much back and forth to each other and screaming at Mike to get him out of there. And so they took off, and in a lot of talks, I've run into people who have, sort of disparaged the crew for not standing their ground there. But I always want to add that, I find no fault with these guys for having taken off like that, because they thought I was dead, and they thought I was next. They were next, and so, what good would it do them to get themselves killed rescuing somebody who's already dead? So, it's perfectly understandable. They took off. Dang near wrecked the truck several times getting away from there, and they once they got close to the rim road, they'd stop briefly, but they said that they caught sight of some hunters and went trying to catch the truck and see if they could get some people with some guns to help them. I guess even then they knew that they were going to have to go back and see what they could do. They were unable to catch the deer hunters, so they did return to the site, and they had a lot of fear, approaching it. Somebody said they thought they saw the object leaving, but it was only when they actually got there that they, confirmed that it didn't seem to be there anymore. But then neither was I, and they said they made a search. At one point, Mike, really fell to his knees and broke down crying, and Ken helped him up, and they stayed in a real tight bunch trying to make a search. They only had one flashlight, and they were all just huddled together trying to, do what they had to do, trying to see if they could rescue me. And I give those guys a lot of credit for that, but they were unable to find me, so they went back to town, and they argued about what to do. And Alan didn't want to go to the authorities right away. He figured that they ought to just go get some friends with some guns and come back, make a search, and then if they couldn't find anything, report it. But Mike and Ken said, no, we gotta, what if Travis is never found? How'll that look if we don't go report it right away? So they called the local deputy, and he came down, and he called the sheriff in, and the sheriff said that he was immediately struck with that these guys had been through something really traumatic. But apparently all the lawmen, being lawmen, suspected that there had been some foul play, and that this was just a cover story for why no one was going to see me again. So unlike in the movie, they did go back with half the crew to make a search that night. And again, I give those guys credit for that. But the real manhunt began the next morning. The sheriff got together, over 50 volunteers and the sheriff's posse and deputies and Forest Service people, search and rescue teams. They had a very organized search in which they combed the entire area on foot. They had men on horseback. There was four-wheel drives. The tracking dogs were brought in at one point. They had airplanes and helicopters crisscrossing the area. And during this time, in my recent conversation with John, he was saying that what the lawmen did is they separated the crew up, and as the crew were helping with the search, one deputy or officer with each of the men, and they were basically all pushing the men to confess to the murder. John said, he says, "Come on, just tell us what really happened so we can all go home and, get this over with." So the men got really tired of the accusations, and they said, we'll take any test you want. Give us sodium pentothal lie detector tests. We're telling the truth. We did not kill him. We saw what we saw. And so the sheriff heard about that and set up a lie detector test with the state police, Department of Public Safety polygraph examiner. Came up and tested all the men there at the jail, at the courthouse. And so when they passed, it was new theories. And people were desperate to explain this away any way they could. Theories that all the men were hallucinating on drugs, that I'd had a transitory psychosis, that the hypnotist that I saw later had implanted memories. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. The first thing I recall after being hit by the beam was waking up real slowly. I was in a lot of pain. I was in and out of consciousness for quite a while. I don't know how long, but I didn't know where I was at first. And then, I remembered approaching the object, and I thought that maybe I'd been hurt somehow and that the crew had brought me to the hospital. So I assumed that I was in a hospital. I could feel they had something across my chest. And I was on some kind of a raised surface, a bed or a gurney or something, operating table. And it hurt so bad, and I was having trouble breathing. Couldn't get enough air. I felt like I was suffocating. But there was a light above me, and I didn't want to move too much because of the pain. I thought maybe I'd make things worse if I moved, but I could hear the sounds of movement around me, and I thought that these were just doctors. And I was having trouble focusing my eyes. This light above me wasn't all that bright, but it kind of hurt to look at it because, the pain in my head and chest was pretty intense. And but I looked to my right, and I saw this face, and then I could focus on it, and this was not a doctor. I was looking into the face of this creature, and I just flipped out. The surge of fear gave me enough strength to move, but it was still very hard to move. I lifted my arm up to knock it away from me, but it was more of a push than anything. And he fell back into the other one. And it was lighter and softer than I expected, but I was still just so terrified. And a lot of people don't understand the degree of fear that I was experiencing, but all these things combined to make me react negatively in a way far more uncontrollably than I probably would have had it not happened that way. See, I'm in all this pain. I'm struggling to breathe. It's dimly lit in a very small, cramped room. It's humid, and you know, if you can't catch your breath, that's probably the most panic-inducing thing that there is, and that's why, you know, waterboarding is so effective at getting information out of terrorists, you know, because nothing will make you more afraid than that. It's on a very basic, instinctive level. But when I rolled off the table and staggered back away from them, they came around the table towards me, and I fell back against the. There was kind of a workbench or a shelf, low shelf there against the back wall, and they were coming towards me. So I just grabbed something off of that and I struck out at them. They weren't close enough to hit, but I was just screaming threats, and it must have worked because they stopped. They sort of extended their hands towards me. And the thing that really stands out in my mind, the thing that was the main feature of my nightmares for so long after that, was those eyes, the way they looked at me. And these were not black obsidian eyes like you hear reported quite so often. They had pupils and irises and eyelids, because I saw them blink. And but their gaze, for some reason, it seemed like they were looking right into me in a really disturbing kind of way. It wasn't like the expression. There wasn't really much expression to their face. It wasn't frozen like a mask, but it still was a kind of a detached sort of look that, you know, I just felt. It's really hard to describe the emotion that caused in me. It was just very disturbing. You know, when you're around somebody that you feel doesn't care about you one way or the other, they don't have to be hostile. We still kind of interpret that as negative, you know, as unfriendly. But I was thinking about, there was only one door, and it was beyond them. So I was thinking of how I could fight my way past them and escape. But before I could move, they turned and went out the door. And there was this little passageway that went to the right. So, you know, I was afraid they'd come back, so I went to the door and went to the left, just looking for a way out. Well, you know, I wasn't thinking clearly. I was in a total, just blind panic that there was no clear thought to it. I was thinking, open a door and get out. Maybe in the back of my mind, I was thinking this thing was still in the woods and I could jump to the ground real easily, but it's probably a good thing I wasn't able to open a door. But that probably wasn't the best thing to do right at that time. But I went down this passageway, and I was really kind of in this weird sort of a panic because I couldn't see very far ahead. It curved to the right so far I couldn't see very much in front of me or behind me. So I was, you know, kind of torn between sprinting away from these creatures that I woke up to and whatever freedom I might find ahead. But I came to a door, and there was a room, and I could see, you know, what I took to be doors, the outlines of doors on the other side, and piecing together the floor plan of what I saw later, you know, I figured out that those probably doors wouldn't have been close to the outside of this craft. They But at that point, I didn't really know where I was very disoriented, and I was hoping those would be a door out of this craft. And the curious thing about this room is that when I entered it, the closer I got to the middle, the darker it became, and I could see points of light on the walls, floor, ceiling, everything.